I've stared down enemy warships in stormy seas, felt the spray of exploding shells on my face, and yet nothing could prepare me for the moment my own parents told me my daughter didn't belong to our family. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon in the dining room of my parents' house, the air still tinged with lemon polish and fried chicken, the smells of my childhood. But I wasn't a child anymore. I was Vice Admiral Victoria Brooks, second in command of the Atlantic Fleet, and beside me sat my daughter Isla, 19, first-year cadet at the Naval Academy, dressed in crisp whites, every inch the officer she was becoming. My mother slid a cream envelope toward me, her manicure flawless, her smile tight. "It's your cousin Daniel's wedding invitation," she said. "A grand affair. Generals, admirals, all the right people I picked it up, already sensing the sting hidden inside." At the head of the table, my father's eyes bored into me like a hawk. I opened the envelope, thick cardstock, gold lettering, elegant and expensive. Then, in small italic print at the bottom, Military Family Honor Event, Bloodline Only. And there it was, next to my name, a red slash through Isla's name. Deliberate, cutting, as if erasing her from existence. I read it twice. My jaw tightened. My voice stayed steady. "What's this supposed to mean?" My father cleared his throat. "Victoria, family tradition. Only bloodline counts in official photographs. You understand, outsiders," Isla murmured, quiet but piercing. Recognition, hurt, confusion flickered across her face. "You mean me?" My mother sipped her tea as though this were ordinary. "Sweetheart, it's nothing personal. In our circles, these things matter." I felt heat surge up my neck. I had faced captains with more honor than this. "She's my daughter," I said. "She wears this uniform. She stands by me. Anywhere." My father's thin, almost pitying smile didn't waver. "She's not blood, Victoria. We've been over this. Daniel's Day, don't make it about you or her." Isla's eyes stayed on me, waiting. The room seemed to shrink. My hand hovered over the invitation, fingers trembling, but I placed it gently on the table. "Then we won't attend," I said, my voice calm, though inside it was anything but. Silence. My mother blinked. My father leaned back, exhaling disappointment, not surprise. "That's your choice," he said, "but people will notice." "I hope they do," I replied. On the drive back to base, Isla stared out the window, her reflection unreadable. I knew that look, disciplined, controlled, hiding a hurt deeper than words. "You okay?" I asked. She shrugged. "It's fine. I guess I saw it coming." That hit harder than any words my parents had spoken. She'd lived her whole life on the edge of their family, never fully accepted, always second. And now, even in my parents' eyes, her place at my side was optional. I wanted to fix it, to make them see her worth, but I knew better. "You belong with me." "Always," I said instead. Back home, I placed the invitation beside a small, hand-drawn badge Isla had made when she was 6. World's Best Officer, scribbled in blue crayon. That badge, more than any medal I've ever earned, reminded me who truly mattered. And as I sat there staring at the gold-trimmed invitation and the crooked little badge side by side, a chill ran down my spine. Something had shifted. This wasn't going to be one of those stories where I swallowed the insult, donned the uniform, and smiled for appearances. This was the start of a revenge story. Quiet, calculated, precise. A reckoning that didn't just level the field, it rewrote the rules entirely. I didn't yet know the method, but I knew the fact. My parents had drawn a line, and so had I. Only difference. Mine was permanent. If you've never served in the Navy, the rhythm of it might escape you. Deployments, port calls, engines humming underfoot. For me, that rhythm began 25 years ago, the day I first saluted the flag. Back then, I was Ensign Victoria Brooks, 21, stubborn, relentless, determined to prove women could command in a world designed to doubt them. Every promotion, every medal, every scar invisible to outsiders, I earned through grit, blood, and sweat. No shortcuts, no family favors. Then came Isla. I was 30, 4 years into my career, 2 deployments behind me, still fumbling to understand what family meant. She was in the corner of a Norfolk foster home, coloring with a broken crayon, hair falling into her face. She didn't look up when I entered. The social worker said she was 4, shy, cautious. I crouched to meet her eyes. "Hi, I'm Victoria," I said. She didn't answer, just stared with those serious, calculating eyes, as if measuring whether I was worth remembering. Weeks passed before she whispered, "Mom." I remember parking after preschool drop-off, gripping the wheel and crying, not from sorrow but from recognition. Someone had chosen me back. From that moment, I vowed she would never feel unworthy, never doubt her place. That promise guided me through deployments, sleepless nights, missed holidays, every moment I had to make up for being away. The Navy taught me loyalty to country, crew, mission. Isla taught me loyalty begins at home. My parents never got that. Or maybe they did, and it scared them. They had imagined a conventional path for me. A proper husband, proper children, family name intact. To them, blood was everything. Ironically, I spilled mine for strangers repeatedly, and would again without hesitation. When I brought Isla home, they were polite. My mother called her the little one. My father inquired about when I'd have real children. Smiles, casual words, but Ayla noticed. Kids always notice. Years of subtle cruelty followed. Christmas gifts that felt like afterthoughts, family photos that excluded her, a Memorial Day cookout where an uncle introduced her as Victoria's foster kid. Even years after adoption was final. I told myself it was ignorance, not malice. That time, exposure, and success would reveal her worth. But here's the truth I wish I'd heard. People who refuse to see you will keep their eyes shut, no matter how bright the reality shines. Since that invitation, I've thought about it constantly. Because anyone who's loved someone treated as invisible knows. It's not the single insult that breaks you. It's the accumulation, the years of tiny cuts, subtle exclusions, jokes disguised as harmless, silences when voices should have been loud with support. And I know some of you listening have felt this sting, maybe from your in-laws, maybe your own parents, maybe even right now, and you're questioning if you're overreacting. You're not. Trust me, you're not. For me, the Navy was sanctuary, a place where rank, orders, and mission defined me, not my last name. My crew didn't care that Isla wasn't blood. They cared that she showed up, learned everyone's name, baked cookies for watch rotations. She belonged there in a way she never did at my parents' house. There was one moment, years before that cursed wedding invitation, that crystallized it. I just returned from a Pacific deployment. Ela was 12. Weeks of secret work had gone into a hand-drawn badge. World's best officer. Crooked blue letters pinned to my jacket the moment I stepped through the door. I wore it over my heart all evening, even as my real medals dug into my collarbone. My parents were there. My father glanced at the badge and said, "Cute. Maybe she'll make one saying, 'World's best mum,' when you finally have real children." I laughed outwardly, but later, when Isla wasn't looking, I tucked that badge somewhere safe, not because I didn't want to wear it, but because it was already priceless. Looking back, I realized their problem was never Isla herself. It was what she symbolized, my refusal to obey their rules, my insistence that family is chosen, not dictated by DNA, that loyalty belongs to people, not bloodlines. That's why the invitation cut so deep, not because it was the first exclusion, it wasn't, but because it was official, written, public. Sitting in that dining room, gold-trimmed card in hand, Isla's name crossed out, I understood another truth. This wasn't just a wedding. It was control. a reminder that no matter how high I climbed, they could still reach up and try to drag me down. I didn't tell Isla all of this. She's smart. She'd already pieced much of it together. But I kept my promise from when she was 4. She would never have to fight for her place in my life. What I didn't know yet was that I was about to fight for mine. If you think the wedding invitation was the worst, you'd be wrong. In my family, one insult never comes alone. It's always the opening act. The week after I refused to attend, the storm started. Not with shouting. My parents never raised their voices. They whispered to the right ears. First, a call from Captain Rourke, my superior at the Atlantic Fleet. "Victoria," he said, voice low, "I received an odd email from the Family Liaison Office, something about you being unfit to represent at the Navy Heritage Gala. Were you aware of this?" My stomach dropped. The Heritage Gala, a pinnacle event where senior officers mingled with political leaders, veterans, and international partners. I was set to deliver the keynote on leadership in modern naval operations. "No, sir," I said. "Who—" He cut me off. The email mentioned family disputes, warned your attendance could embarrass the service. I didn't need to guess who had sent it. My parents knew exactly how to wound without leaving fingerprints. They framed it as concern for the Navy's image, knowing the military's obsession with public perception. Cutting Isla out of a wedding wasn't enough. They now targeted my career's proudest moments. I hung up and found Isla in the kitchen, halfway through coffee, wearing her Naval Academy hoodie, hair pulled back, posture taut. "Bad call?" she asked. I didn't want to tell her. I didn't want her thinking she was the reason. But she read me too well. "It's about them, isn't it?" I exhaled, the words sharp in the quiet kitchen. "They've reached out to the Navy. Tried to get me pulled from the Heritage Gala." Isla's face drained of color. "Because of me?" "No," I snapped, sharper than I meant. "Because of them. Because I didn't bend." She nodded, but I saw the guilt settle anyway. That was the part that burned the most, not the career hit, but knowing she'd blame herself. Then came the texts. My sister, never subtle, fired a message into the family group chat. "Can't believe you're skipping the wedding over your ego. Dad says you're making a spectacle of yourself. For what? To play hero to a girl who doesn't even share your name?" Heat rose in my chest. Isla scrolled her own phone at the counter, shoulders stiff. She'd read it too. "They're wrong," she said quietly. "I know," I murmured, but knowing doesn't stop the sting. The next blow hit faster than expected. 2 days later, I walked into my office on base to see a printed memo on my desk. Temporary reassignment of command duties, pending review. No explanation, no meeting. Just those words, signed by a deputy I'd mentored for 5 years. I called Captain Rourke immediately. "Is this about the gala?" A pause. "It's about optics." "I'm sorry, Victoria. You know how these things go." Optics. When appearances mattered more than truth. And my parents had just weaponized it against me. That night, sleep fled. I sat in my study, the lamp throwing shadows across the walls. The wedding invitation still lay next to Isla's crayon badge. I turned it over in my hands, remembering all the little slights I'd let slide, telling myself it wasn't worth the fight. But now they had crossed into my world, the one I'd built myself. The Navy was my home, my proof that honor and hard work still mattered, and they were poisoning it all because I refused to diminish my daughter. Isla entered, barefoot, carrying 2 mugs of tea. She placed one in front of me. "You've been up for hours." "I'm fine," I lied. She sat across, legs tucked under, eyes sharp. "You don't have to protect me. I see it. I hear them. I know what they're trying to do." I swallowed hard. "They want me to choose. They think if they hit me where it hurts, I'll fold." "And will you?" I met her gaze. "Not a chance." If you've ever had someone push you into a corner, weaponizing your weaknesses, you know the mix of rage and helplessness. One part of you wants to scream, the other wants to plan, to strike back where it hurts most. I leaned toward the second. By week's end, the pressure was suffocating. Gala slot reassigned. Temporary command extended. Rumors spread of family-related misconduct. I could almost hear my parents in the whispers. See what happens when you defy us. Friday afternoon, I stood in the kitchen staring at the coffee maker like it held answers. Isla dropped her bag. We should just skip town. Go somewhere they can't reach us. I shook my head. No. This is my ship, my waters. I'm not letting them drive me away. And then the seed of an idea began to form. Not fully, but enough. A way to turn their obsession with appearances against them. A way to expose them without saying a word. They'd crossed a line. I was going to make them regret it. The envelope arrived quietly. I didn't see the mail. Isla found it first, wedged between bills and a glossy Navy magazine. She carried it in carefully, fingers barely gripping the edges. It's from Grandma and Grandpa, she said, trying to sound casual, but I caught the flash of guarded worry in her eyes. I took it from her, weighing it in my hand. Thick paper, gold foil trim, the kind of stationery my mother adored for important family events. The Brooks family seal was embossed on the flap, grand as if announcing a state visit. Inside, the invitation was exactly what I expected. My cousin Daniel's wedding, black tie, military family honor event. Then, in smaller print, attendance reserved for direct bloodline family members only. And, just to make sure the point hit home, a handwritten note at the bottom. Victoria, this is a tradition. Please respect the rules. We'll see you there. Mom and Dad. I stared at it, the weight of it pressing down. Isla didn't ask to see it. She just stood, hands in the pockets of her Naval Academy hoodie, shoulders hunched as if trying to shrink. They're not inviting me, she whispered. I forced my voice steady. They're saying it's bloodline only. Her mouth twisted into a grimace that almost looked like a smile. Guess I don't make the cut. God, that hurt. Not just for what they'd written, but for how she said it. Like she'd rehearsed those words for years, like she'd known this moment was coming. This wasn't a casual snub at a barbecue or a missing name on a card. This was deliberate, public, written, distributed to hundreds of extended family guests, many wearing the same uniform I did. I could already hear the whispers. Why didn't Victoria bring her daughter? Isn't she in the Navy too? Oh, adopted? That explains it. And my parents, smiling through it, offering no defense. I put the invitation down on my desk. We're not going, I said. Isla nodded as if expecting it. Okay. But I saw the tension in her eyes, the way her arms stayed crossed. She didn't cry, never in front of them. That's something we share? That night my mother called. I almost didn't pick up. Her voice warm and practiced. Victoria, I heard you declined the RSVP. Surely this isn't about Ela or the tradition. We're just keeping things consistent. She's 19, I said flatly. She's your granddaughter. A pause. Softer now. You've made this difficult. You chose a path that doesn't fit our family's expectations. That's your way of saying she's not one of you, I replied. My mother sighed, heavy with manufactured disappointment. Don't punish your cousin. Don't punish us. It's just one night. As if years of exclusion could be erased in a single evening. By morning, the group chat was buzzing. Rachel chimed in. Tessa says you're not coming. Why make this about her? My brother, ever the mediator. Come on, Victoria, it's a military tradition. Don't be dramatic. All of them repeating the same words. Tradition, rules, not personal. The language of cruelty dressed as propriety. That afternoon, Captain Rourke stopped by my office, closing the door behind him. Bad sign. You've got a problem, he said. Family liaison sent another notice. Someone, no name of course, filed a concern about your recent personal conduct. linked to the wedding invitation. They're recommending we limit your public appearances until it blows over. My jaw tightened. And by someone, you mean he didn't answer. Didn't need to. Escalation. My parents weren't just keeping Isla out of their family. They were trying to erase both of us from the Navy's public image, the same Navy I'd dedicated my life to, the Navy that had honored me where they could only dream. I went home to find Isla at the dining table, textbooks open. She looked up instantly. "What happened?" "They're trying to pull me from the Heritage Gala," I said, citing family-related optics. She frowned. "Because of me?" "No," I said, firmer this time. "Because of them. Because they can't stand that I won't play their game. If you've ever had someone attack you, not with fists, not with loud words, but with quiet, calculated moves designed to strip you of what matters, you know how suffocating it feels. You can't fight them the normal way. You can't storm into their office or shout in front of a crowd. You have to sit there, taking hit after hit, while they smile like nothing's wrong. That's the war my parents were waging now." That night, I sat at my desk, the gold-trimmed invitation in one hand, Isla's crayon badge in the other. The card gleamed, polished perfection. The badge was frayed, the blue crayon faded from years in my pocket. One symbolized image, the other truth. I realized then I'd spent my life trying to serve both, but not this time. They had made sure of that. When the people who raised you turn against you, it's never just one thing. It's every little cut, every moment that trained you to expect less. That night, the contrast was impossible to ignore. The gold-trimmed wedding invitation and the small worn badge, uneven oval, crooked letters, a tiny ship cutting through blue waves, world's best officer. Made by Isla when she was 6. Just seeing it transported me back. It was the summer after my second Pacific deployment. 7 months away. Phone calls dropping, birthdays missed, school events vanished. I walked in the door. Isla was there, hair in a crooked ponytail, t-shirt glittering with navy brat. She didn't run into my arms. She held something behind her back, watching, confirming I was real. Then she stepped forward, offering the badge. Edges frayed from her safety scissors, messy coloring, uneven letters, but under the words she drew a tiny ship cutting through waves. "For you," she said. I doubt she fully grasped the weight of that moment. In the Navy, medals come for missions, bravery, years of service. But this, the first award not tied to rank, not to title. It was about who I was to her. I knelt, pinned it to my jacket, and wore it through the evening. Through dinner, through the small welcome home gathering from my crew. Even when my real medals dug into my collarbone, I kept it pinned. My parents were there. My father glanced at it and chuckled. Cute. Maybe she'll make one saying, "World's best mom when you finally have real kids." I smiled, pretending it didn't sting. Later, after Isla slept, I tucked the badge in my desk drawer. Not because I didn't want to wear it, but because it was priceless, and no one else deserved it. This wasn't an isolated memory. When Ela was 8, she drew our family. Me in uniform, her in a sailor dress, my ship in the background. She gave it to my mother. My mom smiled, thanked her, and set it down. Later, I found it crumpled beside the recycling bin. At 10, she saved her allowance to buy my father a model ship. He unwrapped it, nodded, said, "That's nice," then turned to my brother's hunting stories. Small moments, dismissed, unnoticed by anyone but me. That's how they worked. Tiny cuts, repeated until the bleeding was invisible. Every time they left her name off a holiday card, every time they introduced her as Victoria's daughter instead of our granddaughter, I noticed. Every time. And every time, I promised myself I'd make it right. I'd take her to the Navy pier to watch the ships glide in, waves slapping the hulls, stories spilling from me about sailors who became family without sharing a drop of blood. I wanted Isla to know that belonging isn't granted. It's carried inside you, something no invitation or lineage could ever take away. That badge meant everything. Not a scrap of cardboard with a crayon, but proof. Proof she saw me not as an officer, but as hers. Proof I could be someone's home, even if I'd never had one myself. Years later, staring at that badge next to the wedding invitation, the contrast was brutal. The invitation, polished, expensive, designed to impress people obsessed with appearances, and designed to exclude. The badge, crooked, worn, child-made, and unshakably true. Ela counted more than anyone else ever would. I picked up the badge, feeling the faint crayon wax, the bend from where she pressed scissors too hard. Memories flooded. Every time my parents tried to erase her, every time I let it slide for peace. This time, they weren't just erasing her, they were erasing me. And I realized, peace with them was a myth, just silence they controlled. If you've ever kept something, a note, a photo, a handmade gift, because it reminded you who you are at your best, you understand. That badge wasn't just a memory, it was a promise. I was going to protect her. I was going to protect us, no matter the cost. I didn't set it down. I pinned it inside my uniform jacket, over my heart. For the first time in weeks, I felt steady. The invitation lay untouched, a reminder of their expectations. The badge was my choice, my declaration. In the Navy, every battle starts long before the first shot is fired. You watch, you prepare, you wait, and then you strike, fast and hard. The battle had already begun. I was done waiting. My parents were masters of escalation, never direct, always incremental. Small enough to seem harmless alone, but deadly in some. The morning after pinning the badge, 2 envelopes awaited me at my desk. One, official Navy correspondence. My keynote at the Heritage Gala reassigned to Rear Admiral Vaughn. No reason. The other from the Family Liaison Office, worse. A recommendation limiting my public appearances until ongoing family-related matters are resolved, to protect the Navy's image. Family-related matters. I could hear my mother in that phrasing. I called Captain Rourke. "They're moving fast," he said. "Whoever's feeding them knows exactly what to say to make it stick." "You mean my parents," I said. He didn't confirm. Silence said enough. By noon, rumors swept the officers' mess. A lieutenant I'd mentored avoided my eyes. Another officer, a supposed friend, asked if I was okay at home, that faux-concerned tone of gossip hunting. Back at my quarters, Isla sat with her laptop, scrolling her Naval Academy group chat. Tension in her shoulders before she spoke. "They're talking about it. Somebody told the cadets you're in trouble because of me." "Who told them?" I asked. She shook her head. "Does it matter?" "They believe it." She tried to smile, but it cost her. "Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm just making things harder for you." That stopped me cold. I sat down across from Isla, eyes locked on hers. "Listen to me," I said, voice firm. "The only people making this harder are the ones trying to make you feel like you don't belong. And I won't let them win." Her gaze dropped, jaw tight. The same look she had as a little girl, trying not to cry in front of strangers. That weekend, the call came. The Fleet Review Board, temporarily relieving me of operational command for the current mission cycle. Official reason, pending review of conduct to ensure compliance with the Navy's public image standards. Unofficially, exactly what my parents wanted. Me sidelined, humiliated, isolated, right before the wedding that had ignited all of this. Sunday dinner at their house was still a tradition for most of the family. I hadn't gone in months. That night, Rachel texted, "If you're going to freeze everyone out, at least have the guts to say it to our faces." I ignored it. I knew exactly what would happen if I walked in. Smiles for the room, knives for the shadows. Monday morning, Isla found a printed note slid under our door. No return address, but I didn't need one. "When she leaves for her career, you'll be alone. Blood is what stays." The rest is temporary." She handed it to me silently. I'd seen intimidation tactics in combat zones. This was worse. At least enemies in uniform are upfront about wanting you gone. By midweek, the walls felt like they were closing in. The Heritage Gala, gone. Command duties, suspended. Invitations to smaller Navy events, quietly rescinded. I'd built my reputation on consistency and integrity. Now, thanks to whispers from the two people who should have had my back, it was unraveling in slow motion. Thursday night I found Isla in the kitchen, dark, phone glowing against her face. "They posted it," she said. "Posted what?" She swiveled the screen toward me. A photo of the wedding seating chart, clearly leaked. Our names, missing. Caption: "Finally, no drama at the head table this year." I sank into the chair across from her. "They want you small," I said, "to make you feel like a problem to be removed." Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled. What if they're right? What if they just never see me as family? For a moment I couldn't speak, not because of doubt, but because the truth was brutal. They would never see her the way we did. I reached into my jacket, pulled out the badge she'd made years ago, and set it between us. "This," I said, "is my family. Not them, not their traditions, not their guest lists. You, me, that's it." She touched it gently as if it were fragile. "Then what do we do?" "We wait," I said, "and when the time comes, we show them exactly who we are. If you've ever been cornered, every exit blocked, every move twisted against you, you know the fear melts away, and something colder takes its place. Clarity. That's where I was. The next morning, I sent a message to an old friend in the Navy Media Division, someone who owed me a favor, someone with access to broadcast feeds. We didn't talk specifics. He replied, "Just say when." For the first time in weeks, I felt control. My parents thought they'd written me out. They forgot. I command ships that can turn the tide of a battle in minutes. This battle was far from over. I thought I'd seen the worst. I was wrong. It happened the week before the wedding. Winter air sharp, base quiet. Most sailors on leave, I kept my head down. Then, on a gray Thursday afternoon, a knock. I opened the door. My parents stood there, like it was 2002 and nothing had gone wrong. My mother had a Tupperware container in her hands, oatmeal cookies, her specialty, soft in the middle, burnt at the edges, the same ones she used to make when I was a kid. "Victoria," she said, smiling, warm but hollow. "We thought we'd stop by." My father shifted, posture stiff as ever. "Can we come in?" "Just for a minute." I hesitated, then stepped aside. Part of me wanted peace. Part of me wanted to see the truth spoken to my face. We sat in the living room. My mother placed the cookies on the coffee table like a fragile peace offering. "We just wanted to talk," she said. "Things got heated, but we're still your family." I didn't answer. Heated, their euphemism for decades of passive aggression, calculated slights, and full-blown sabotage. My father leaned forward. "Victoria, we've been patient. We've given you space. But pushing everyone away, embarrassing the family, it's not who you are." I almost laughed. They had isolated me, and now they accused me of leaving. Then my mother softened her tone, as if delivering a cruel gift. "She's 17. She'll leave for her career, her life. Then what? You'll be alone. You'll regret this." I knew exactly who she meant. My fists curled in my lap, and then she said it, the words she'd held for years. "I'm sorry, Victoria, but she's not blood. She's not really one of us." My pulse throbbed in my ears. I faced seconds between life and death, yet nothing ever made my vision burn like this. Footsteps on the stairs. Isla in the doorway, pale, unreadable. She had heard every word. My father glanced at her, then back to me. "When she leaves you, when she forgets about you, you'll see. Our door is still open. You'll come back." I stood. "You need to leave. Now." My mother blinked. Victoria, no. My voice cut through, louder this time. You do not come into my home, insult my daughter to her face, and call it kindness. You do not decide who belongs here. They rose slowly, my mother clutching the cookies like they could undo the moment. My father shook his head, as if confirming every doubt he'd ever had about me. You'll regret this, my mother said again, voice cracking. When she's gone, you'll have no one. I didn't reply. I opened the door, waited. They stepped into the cold without looking back. When I closed it, I leaned until their footsteps disappeared. Upstairs, Isla sat on her bed, knees hugged to her chest. She didn't cry, never does, but her hands were tight in her lap. They really think I'll leave you, she said. No, I told her. They hope you will. So I'd have to crawl back to them. She nodded. They don't get to hope things about me. I thought that was the end. I should have known better. A week later, my cousin Sarah forwarded an email from Rachel to the extended family. Long, rambling, dripping with passive aggression, painting Isla as manipulative, distant, ungrateful, and implying my parenting was obsessive, unhealthy. Worse, it worked. Messages trickled in. Is everything okay? From an aunt. Do you need help? From an uncle who'd never offered it before. Even a comment under Isla's art post. You're lucky. Don't forget who gave you a home. I watched Isla see it, jaw tight, silent. That was when I realized silence wasn't protecting her anymore. It was giving them space to rewrite reality. I didn't reply. Not to Rachel, not to anyone. Instead, I opened a new folder on my laptop. Screenshots, texts, emails, photos from every event where she'd been excluded. Every piece of proof I'd saved over the years. I wasn't compiling it for revenge. Not yet. I was compiling it so there would be no doubt, no erasure, no way for them to pretend this hadn't happened. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, you know the moment the wound becomes a weapon in your hands. That's where I was. They thought they'd humiliated me. What they'd actually done was hand me every piece of ammunition I needed. That night, I closed the laptop. Isla was asleep on the couch, blanket tangled around her legs. The badge she'd made me years ago was still pinned inside my jacket, over my heart. I made a promise. Whatever came next, I wouldn't whisper. The whole damn room would hear me. After Rachel's email went out to the family, something snapped. I'd been on defense for months, dodging rumors, keeping my head down, pretending I could outlast their campaign. Defense doesn't win wars. You advance, you reclaim ground. And if the Navy taught me anything, it's never to enter a battle without knowing every inch of the terrain. Step 1. Gather intel. Hours spent combing emails, text threads, photos from family events, every time Isla was left out of group shots, every card where her name was misspelled or erased, every phone snippet where they called her just a foster kid, or not really one of us. I didn't just collect the obvious. I mapped the patterns, the years of deliberate, small attacks that had built to this moment. When people saw the full picture, they couldn't dismiss it. Step 2. Find an ally. That came in the form of Commander Lee, Navy Media Division. Years ago, I'd pulled him out of a boarding operation gone wrong in the Mediterranean. He hadn't forgotten. When I called, I didn't give details, just a hint about the Heritage Gala broadcast feed. 3 seconds of pause, then, just say when. That was all I needed. Meanwhile, my parents were still pushing their narrative. They'd be at the wedding, half the Navy social elite in tow, whispering I'd stepped back from my career for personal matters. A clean lie for a dirty truth. They'd engineered my removal from events to make me look unstable. Isla noticed my late nights. One evening, she walked into my study, 2 mugs of tea in hand. Up late again, she said. Just putting things in order, I replied. She placed a mug beside me, eyes fixed on mine. You're planning something. I held her gaze, serious. "I'm making sure they don't write the ending of this story." A flicker of a smile. "Good." It wasn't about revenge alone. I wouldn't scream or create a scene. I would do what they hated most. Show the truth where everyone could see it. And I'd do it on a stage they couldn't ignore. The plan began to take shape. The Heritage Gala coincided with the wedding. The broadcast would stream live to multiple venues, including the wedding reception. My moment had to hit at the perfect instant. That was where Commander Lee came in. 2 days before the wedding, he confirmed, "We can make it happen. Your speech goes out live. I'll patch it into the reception feed." I didn't ask how. In the Navy, you learn not to question a clean op. On the morning of the wedding, I woke early. Isla was in the kitchen, calm, almost unnervingly so. "You ready?" I asked. "For what?" I smiled. "For them to finally see us." Before leaving for the gala, I took the badge she'd made, the crooked cardboard ship, and pinned it inside my jacket. Not outside. That reveal would come later. At the venue, I felt the eyes. Curious, skeptical. After all, I wasn't supposed to be here. Officially, I wasn't listed as a speaker. That was about to change. When they finally called my name, silence fell like a blanket over the room. I walked to the podium, the weight of Isla's badge steady over my heart, and for the first time in months, I felt entirely in control. I didn't speak of my parents. I didn't mention the wedding. I spoke of the Navy, of loyalty, honor, and the people who choose to stand by you when everything else tries to pull you down. I spoke of cadets who rise before dawn for watch, sailors who volunteer for extra duty when a comrade is ill, families who open their homes to those with nowhere else to turn. And then I said, family isn't defined by who shares your name. It's defined by who shows up, day after day, no matter the cost. At that moment, I opened my jacket and pinned the crooked, blue crayon badge right over my medals. Across the country, at a wedding reception full of people who thought they'd erased us, a screen flickered to life. And there were my parents, in formal wear, forced to watch me be honored in front of the entire Navy community, with Isla's name spoken aloud into the microphone. By the time I stepped down, my phone vibrated relentlessly. Not with family texts, those would come later, full of damage control, but from officers, sailors, even strangers. That's how you do it. Proud to serve under you. I didn't check the family chat. I didn't need to. That night, Isla and I sat on the balcony of our quarters, city lights stretching below. She leaned her head against my shoulder, quiet. "You think they got the message?" I smiled. "Oh, they got it." If you've ever been cornered, written out of a story, forced to choose between silence and action, you know that burn of clarity. That's where I was. The satisfaction wasn't in winning, it was in reclaiming what was ours. Back at the wedding reception, champagne glasses in hand, my parents basked in their curated social bubble. Laughter, clinking glasses, the polite hum of conversation. All of it stopped when the massive screen flickered. The Navy crest appeared. Then my face. I stood at the podium of the Heritage Gala in a room dressed in blues and golds. Isla sat in the front row, uniform immaculate, back straight, eyes locked on me. "Family," I said, "isn't defined by blood. It's defined by loyalty, by who stands by you even when it costs them everything." I reached inside my jacket, pulled out the badge she'd made at 6, and pinned it over my medals. Given to me by the person I'm proudest to stand beside. Cadet Isla Brooks, my daughter, my family. Every head in that reception hall turned to my parents. The whispering began instantly. Faces tightened. A few guests stepped back. My mother's smile froze. My father's jaw locked. They couldn't look away, couldn't stop the screen. They were forced to witness what they had tried to erase. Back at the gala, applause thundered. Officers stood, saluting. Cameras flashed. Isla joined me on stage, and the Secretary of the Navy shook her hand before addressing the crowd. Honor runs deeper than blood. Tonight, we recognize that truth across the country. In that wedding hall, my parents watched their story collapse live. The Navy as witness. No interruptions, no explanations, no spin. The pen was in my hand. The ending had been rewritten. I didn't have to wait long. 2 days later, a sharp knock at my quarters announced their arrival. No call, no warning. They were mid-sentence when I opened the door. "How dare you humiliate us like that?" my mother hissed, her perfect hair slightly disheveled as if she'd been pacing for hours. My father's voice was low, clipped. "You made us look like fools in front of our friends." I stepped aside just enough for them to enter, but offered no seats. "No," I said evenly. "You made yourselves look like fools. I just told the truth. They tried their usual spin. We were protecting the family name. Isla's too young for these events. You misread our intentions." I'd heard every variation before. Now I had something they couldn't spin. Proof, public, undeniable proof. "You banned her from that wedding," I said, voice steady but cutting. "You told people she wasn't really my daughter. You erased her from photos, conversations, her own family. For what? So your circle could stay comfortable?" My mother opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "You speak of loyalty, heritage, carrying on the Brooks name. But you forgot the one thing that matters: honor. Without it, your name isn't worth the paper it's printed on." They froze. My father's eyes narrowed. Nothing left to say. Not after the Navy, the half-guest list, the thousands who'd watched Isla stand beside me on that stage. I stepped back toward the door. "I'm not your pawn, and I'm done letting you treat Isla like she's invisible. If that means we're not family in your eyes, so be it." Silence fell, heavier than any storm I'd sailed through. They left without another word. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to follow them. The morning after, the apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels earned, not empty. Isla was curled on the couch under a navy blanket, still asleep. I stood by the window, coffee in hand, watching the city awaken. For the first time in months, I wasn't bracing for the next attack. When Isla woke, she didn't mention my parents. She didn't need to. She walked into the kitchen, grabbed a mug, and said, "You look taller on that stage." I laughed. "That's because I had you in the front row." We sat at the table, steam curling from our cups, talking about nothing in particular. Her training schedule. A book she'd started. The absurd Navy cafeteria menu. Every word was proof. We'd survived. Later that week, a letter arrived from Commander Lee. No signature, just, "You changed more than one story that night." I knew what he meant. Since the gala, dozens of messages had poured in from officers and cadets shut out of their own families, made to feel invisible. Some thanked me. Others said they'd finally decided to speak up. That was when I realized this wasn't just about Isla and me. It was about showing the world no one gets to decide your worth but you. That evening, Isla came into my study with a small, worn box. She set it on my desk and opened it. Inside was the cardboard badge, edges frayed, years tucked away. "You should keep it somewhere safe," she said. I shook my head. "No, it stays right here. I pinned it back on my jacket, just above the medals. This one's not for storage." "It's for wearing." She smiled quietly, a smile that said more than words. "Some wounds don't heal because the people who caused them apologize. They heal because you stop letting them bleed you." As the sun dipped below the skyline, I realized this wasn't just the end of a fight. It was the start of living without their shadow over us. A month later, the Navy hosted a small reception for my promotion. No spotlights, no headlines, just the people who mattered. Ela stood beside me as the Admiral placed the new insignia on my shoulder. Applause was warm, genuine. Here, respect wasn't a performance. It was earned. Afterward, we walked the pier. The late afternoon sun turned the water to gold, ships rocking gently. Isla slipped her hand into mine, something she hadn't done since she was little. "You know," she said softly, "it's not that I don't care about them anymore. It's that I care more about us." I looked at her, at the young woman who had weathered storms no one should face, and felt a quiet pride settle in my chest. "That's all I ever wanted," I said. We stopped at the end of the pier. I pulled the cardboard badge from my jacket pocket, holding it over the water like a signal flare. "You remember when you made this?" She grinned. "You wore it for a week straight, even to formal dinners." "I still wear it," I said, voice low but firm. "Not because I need a reminder of who you are, but because I never want to forget who we are, what we built together, no one else allowed to touch." I tucked the badge back into my jacket, the creased cardboard and faded crayon a tiny battle flag in my chest. Some things aren't meant to be thrown away, no matter how worn, no matter how much the world tried to take them from you. That night, I sat at my desk and wrote in my logbook, "Honor isn't inherited. It's chosen, fought for, and protected." My pen felt heavier than usual. I didn't know if my parents would ever see reason. Maybe they'd keep spinning their stories, whispering half-truths to anyone who would listen. But their power over us, over Isla and me, was gone. They couldn't undo what had been said, what had been witnessed, what had been claimed in plain sight. Sometimes the sharpest revenge isn't loud. It's living so fully, so unapologetically that the people who tried to break you can't bear to watch. And if you've ever been shoved out by those who were supposed to protect you, tell me, what would your justice look like?